and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you've made the connection and are with us today. I'm Lori Fitz, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that challenge us to see ourselves, our community, and the world around us that get us thinking, feeling, doing, that ultimately attempts to get us connected, or at least more connected. Our topic for our show today is 2023 and our gentle intentions for the new year. And hosting with me today is Rick Bernardo. Welcome, Rick.
I'm being gentle already.
Good.
Good morning.
Good. I don't know why it struck me more this year. It seems like maybe it's coming out of COVID still, and there's these bold resolutions. Every year I'm a little nervous around anything that, is a proclamation, find the new you. It's a little weird. It's like the old you has passed its expiration date and you've become the sour milk at the end of December. and I don't think that we need to do that. I don't think we've soured. I think we're still in pretty good shape. I also am puzzled at why we have New Year's at the darkest time.
Yeah.
Why? You'd think like New Year would be in the spring. Where there's at least the sense of like beginnings.
That would help.
It would help me feel like there is something changing. But then the more I thought about it, the more I started thinking, well, maybe it is a good time because wintering kind of gives you a time to slow down and reflect. And even though I don't think it makes sense to like fire your last year's self and hire this new year's self, I do think we can set some intentions. And something that struck me that I saw the other day, a quote that I just loved, just a reminder that you don't have to make resolutions or huge decisions or big proclamations. You can just set some sweet intentions and take each day as it comes.
What occurs to me is it's a good time of year to admit I'm a little bit in the dark, and let's try to find our way from here.
Well,
keep it real.
One of the ways I think is always looking to what's been written, ideas I love to read. And I love Albert Einstein. He's such an interesting man. One of the quotes that I was drawn to in thinking about this was, "Do not grow old. No matter how long you live, never cease to stand like curious children before the great mystery into which we were born."
Ooh.
And what I love about that is not only is it a sense of being a lifelong learner, I also love Einstein and his sense of time. He really didn't believe there was time. I mean, we've created time as a construct. But it reminded me of another conversation I had with someone who said, I may be in my 70s, but I'm still a child because I lived through being a child. I'm still a teenager because I lived through being a teenager. I lived through being 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and I can have all of it now. I don't have to be time-bound. It's not the past. It's the evolution of me. And that resonated with me. There are times I still feel like I'm very much the little child as well as the teenager that's rebellious and the 20s. I have all these things because I've lived those things.
I have just had a quick exchange with Gina Barreca, who's that woman that wrote a book that I hope to talk with here on Connections Radio. Uh-huh. She wrote that book called "They Used to Call Me Snow White, But I Drifted." And she is an expert on humor, academia, and she's a professor at UConn. Anyway, she was just asking the question to certain groups, what is old?
Right.
And I try to find a cheeky truth generally to. And she said, and I said, old is the degree to which we stop living in wonder. That and just old parts.
Parts do get old.
Yeah.
Time does have an impact. That I do agree with. But there's something in our soul that is ageless and has had the experience that allows us to experience life through a filter, if nothing else. that just widens versus, well, that was then and this is now. I don't think we have to dismiss the past. But with that comes intentions and looking to the future. I like gentle intentions. Looking at it from a, I call it a spiritual point of view. There is, I think there's a part of finding our voice that's like our prayer. It is who we are and who we want to be when we search for our voice. And Bell Hooks, who's a writer, well, that's her name really is Gloria Jean Watkins, but she goes by the, Bell Hooks.
Whoa.
And Bell had such a beautiful way, I thought, of looking at what does it mean to look for hope. I want a gentle intention that's around hope. And she says, I want to be a place in the world where people can engage in one another's differences in a way that is redemptive, full of hope and possibility. And to me, that's a spiritual intention.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And you were talking to me the other day about something that you found really interesting in looking at spirituality differently.
I was, and I'm always doing that sort of thing. Just saying, here's what I found. Here's my question. But there was actually, it goes back a couple of months into December. There was a number of articles in Religion News Service and others about two PhD students. One is named Elizabeth Schrader, and the other is Joan Taylor. They're from Duke University and King's College. I think one of those is not in the U.S. And they did a really rigorous study of church history and translations about Mary Magdalene. Mm-hmm. And to try to put it in a nutshell, they are more than suggesting, actually claiming that Mary of Magdala, which is how that's interpreted, that she came from someplace, and there's all kinds of research about where the heck is Magdala, like where is that spot? And there is a history of seeing Mary Magdalene as a, either a prostitute or some kind of somebody that's
it was less than
was saved or something,
yes,
and
yes.
just all
and got
that.
to hang around.
And they are looking at most of the evidence, including the translations of that word, to say that was the Magdala was in the languages that it first came up was more meant tower. It meant Mary the magnified. Mary, the tall one in terms of character, mm-hmm. and it refers to her as a tower of the early Christian community, not a location, but more about who this person was to them, and that gives me chills when I think about that, how that can change all kinds of things about our view today and then.
It also changes. It could potentially change our view of our own spirituality. I know growing up in the church, having the pronoun he was always hard for me. I mean, I liked thinking that there was God the Mother and God the Father, but God the Mother just never got any play. There was never a sense of the female voice in that. And I know you were mentioning the other day about how pronouns seem to be something that we are more acknowledging and embracing, but how could that be applied
There's a
to
whole
spirituality?
opening of that in our practices and languages for young and old. Mm-hmm. How do we apply that to humans? But also, there's a lot of churches for years have been practicing. How do we talk about divinity and sacredness with multiple gender terms and all that? So mm-hmm. how do we honor everybody properly in a way that magnifies everybody, to use that word again? I think it's really important.
And I think that could be a gentle intention for the year, is to be, for me, it's looking at, again, the voice. What's the female voice of spirituality? A lot of spirituality does seem to, at least over the last hundreds, maybe thousands of years to have a little bit more of the male dominance, and that's an interesting thing to pursue. What does a woman's voice? What does a woman's spirituality? What does that really look like? And if we're looking at like spirituality, intellectual, emotional, physical, I see those things as I believe, I think, I feel, I do. In looking at feeling, do you have a gentle intention for yourself for the year ahead in feeling?
In feeling?
Yeah.
I really like it when I'm open, and I'm open most of the time, which is why I kind of get goofy and silly because ideas come to me and I just blurt them out. But I think that's my most sacred tool, is an ability to just stop and be open and listen. It's where humor comes from, music, creative ideas on what do we do with the next radio show. Anything important comes from just sort of a dialogue with some other person or some other energy. It doesn't even have to be a person. And so staying open to that, I think, is my most treasured. It's not even a thing. It's more of a path. It's more of a practice.
When I hear you say that, for me, when I hear something, I'm thinking, but when I listen to something, it's with my heart. When I'm really listening at a deeper level.
That's a great way to put it too, sure.
And that's an emotional, we can think about things and it doesn't necessarily have to connect to our heart, but to deeply listen, I think it has to move our heart in some way, shape, or form, or resonate in such a way that I think that's why there's such an emphasis more on telling stories versus here are the facts, just the facts. And what are facts? That's another thing that we've talked about in terms of looking at what's the difference between a fact and truth.
There's all kinds of truth. We can talk about that, a lot. And
so there's lots of good connections that we're making today and thinking about. And we're encouraging the audience to be thinking about, what are your gentle intentions for the year? What kind of conversations do you want around you and for you and all that? And we're going to be having conversations today. We're going to have some folks who've been on our show.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned that. We're going to have guests on the phone.
Yep.
They're real, though.
Yes, and they'll be calling in and they'll be talking about their gentle intentions for the year. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for thinking about your gentle intentions. And we'll be right back after a few commercials. Good morning. Glad you've joined us. Welcome to Connections Radio Show. I'm Lori Fitz, and we like to talk about ideas that matter. And today we are talking about gentle intentions for 2023. And joining me hosting today is Rick Bernardo.
That's
Welcome.
me. Hi, good morning.
And Rick, you've invited someone.
I invite people to all kinds of things. That's part of being open and part of the joy of living. We have Lauren Nemi with us. I know Lauren Nemi from In the Heart of the Beast Theater work, where he's executive director, but also his long story of storytelling and poetry and authoring and really being a connection for community voices. So anyway, good morning, Lauren.
Good morning. Nice. It's a nice wrap up of.
Well, we don't want to summarize your life just yet, so I know that's open. We were actually talking about the truths of stories and how they can serve us, and we didn't even explore it yet. So it's perfect to have you on yet. But anyway, what is opening up for you this year? Or you heard maybe Lori talking about what we're trying to look at for this next year.
Well, there are three things for me that are opening up. On a cultural level, I think that audiences are starting to come back. Which is really lovely. As a storyteller, I'd much rather tell to an audience, to live people in the room, than I would on Zoom. And so opportunities to tell to live audiences are emerging once again in post-pandemic. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to.
Wonderful. And again, tell us more about why that connection, that live connection, is so important to you.
Well, the reality is that every story is told to someone, even if that someone is yourself. Mm-hmm. Even if it's, even if you're the audience for you're trying to figure out what the story is. But when you're in a room with an actual audience, there is I'm going to use the word, there is a psychological and an emotional connection that takes place. Mm-hmm. The audience gives me clues as to what they are receiving, whether I should tell more or less, whether, where the humor is, where the fear is, or the anticipation. And as I'm telling and I'm seeing and feeling and reading the audience, I'm adjusting the story so that to emphasize those things.
When you shared that, I had this image of you being in the middle of lots of crossroads, that you're in the intersection of many story paths. And in that story path, you create a relationship and a connection with all of those intersections of life paths that get expressed, whether it be in a laugh or whether it be just in their presence. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit to sense in to community and what that community feels like.
You're right, exactly. The difference between storytelling and theater is that in theater you're often working from a script. Mm-hmm. And the script prescribes these are the words you are going to say, and this mm-hmm. is the response you're going to have to other actors or to, mm-hmm. But in storytelling, you have the flexibility to be in the room right now with the audience. And I've always enjoyed that. That's one of the great joys of storytelling. So that when I have whatever story I have, the core, the bones of the story remain the same, but the flesh on those bones shifts, and sometimes dramatically, depending on who the audience is and where.
And Lauren, in stand-up comedy and music, that's the deal all the time. And this is a form of creativity and recital all at the same time.
I have a question for you about story. You're telling a story, and you're a wonderful storyteller. But are you learning more about? I also want to say you have a very distinct voice. You've over the years have culled your experience into understanding your voice. Do you grow in understanding your voice through storytelling and through these adaptions, or is it more of an exploration of those experiences that just come to life?
Well, excuse me. Interestingly enough, that leads me to the second thing I've been thinking about for this year.
Good.
Which is, so at my age, it would be easy to fall into simple habit, and mm-hmm. habit isn't helpful, particularly not for the creation of the art. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to think, okay, how can I approach the work I do as a beginner? Where and my intention is to learn. My intention is to do more exploration of both style and technique.
The beginner's mind is such a beautiful thing to think about in art, especially.
It is, and I'm going to have, I'm going to have some opportunities to actually do that this year, which is lovely. So.
Our experience in common, Lauren, of teaching in different areas, we always know that the teacher is ever the student.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And do you have another intention for the year?
Well, my third intention is kind of oddly specific, which is that after 43 years of being intimately connected with the National Storytelling Network, being not only a member but being on committees, being chairs of committees, being on the board of directors, being the chair of the board of directors twice now, I'm actually done with that. I've retired. But in the meanwhile, the local storytelling organization, Story Arts Minnesota, has brought me on the board, and so one of my local intentions is to see how. Well, there are two parts to it. One is to see how Story Arts Minnesota can flourish, and the other is that, excuse me, in relationship to my own pandemic process, the creation of the American School of Storytelling. It is, we've now in the American School, we're not only offering online classes, but we've begun offering in-person performance.
Nice.
At the Briar in Northeast Minneapolis. So, second Wednesday of the month.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful evolution.
And we just have a little bit of time. So is AmericanSchoolOfStorytelling.com, is that something we can share with people?
Yep, AmericanSchoolOfStorytelling.com, no spaces in between.
Right.
We'll get you to it.
And also share your book and how we can get your book.
2 books. One is What Haunts Us, which is available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or I think Eat My Words actually has copies on the shelf. And the other is Breviary for the Lost, which is the new one, which is the poetic memoir of my religious life. That is also, it should be available on Amazon. I know it's on Barnes & Noble. And again, I think Eat My Words has copies.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry that my voice seems to have taken a leave of absence.
No, it's all good. You were very clear.
It's awesome.
And
All right.
I love your intentions for the year. And perhaps you'll consider coming back in December, and we can talk about how those intentions went for all of us.
I'm always game to chat with you guys.
All right. We look forward
Thanks,
to
Lauren.
it. Have a good one. And we'll be right back just after a few short commercials. Welcome back to Connections Radio Show. I'm Lori Fitz, and we talk about ideas that matter. Today, we are talking about gentle intentions for ourselves and others for 2023. And my co-host, Rick Bernardo, is with us today and has invited some of our past guests to join us and talk about their intentions.
I did. I admit to that. We've got Ann Sawyer with us, who I know from In the Heart of the Beast Theater, but she does so many things in so many creative ways, from books and art. And I just was seeing her, the product of wearable art contraptions that we will see at Lake Harriet with children's art contraptions of like Tutti Frutti Jalopy. Anyway, I'm still giggling at, like, how do you even explain any of this? Yeah. Hi, Ann. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ann. We're so glad that you joined us today. And I was amused by the pictures. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about this this program that's going to be out at Lake Harriet, and then we'll jump back to having Ann share with us about her intentions.
Yeah. So this is a fun little project. There's this, you are probably aware that we have just this amazing art car community here in Minnesota, artists who call themselves cartists. And they have these fancifully decorated, beautiful cars that are reminiscent of the Tap-Tap, which are the decorated buses in Haiti that are public transportation. So anyway, here we have, there's one of the people who's very active in that is a former artistic director of Forecast Public Arts. His name is Jack Becker. And Jack and Jan Elfman from, as a Cork Truck fame, decided that they wanted to do this wearable art car contraption thing to make it more accessible for the larger community to join in. And we have these art shanties that happen every year at Lake Harriet, which is a whole other thing. And so the art car people did a parade last year. Everybody made a wearable art contraption.
Oh,
and then we paraded out every weekend. And they were just cars made from various things like cardboard and recycled political signs and stuff like that. But wonderful outfits. And so now we're taking it to the schools. And it's funded. This particular residency is funded through Art Start,
Nice.
which is located in St. Paul. And so Carol Sarine partnered with Jack Becker to bring this, and then they hired me as an art card person to go in and teach it with Terry Fahey.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you know Terry Fahey, but she's a wonderful artist as well and longtime collaborator of mine.
So all kinds of connections. Thank you. Yeah.
No, it's wonderful because another one of my intentions is I want to go out and be part of more events with community. I think the COVID made us a little shy about getting back into community. And I love hearing about the good community celebrations that are out there. So tell me about do you have gentle intentions, your intentions for the year ahead? We're not saying resolutions or proclamations. We're just like, what kind of gentle things do we want for ourselves?
Yeah. So my gentle intentions, boy, I am looking forward to hopefully writing and painting more. As an artist that works out in the community a lot, I do get a lot of fulfillment from that, but I also sometimes need to refill the cup for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because 2022 was sort of everything came roaring back.
Yes,
like
it was a coming out party.
It was, oh my goodness. And I got slammed.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what to do, how to handle it, because I had become used to a different sort of pace.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that were really awful and scary about the shutdown and the pandemic and the extended what's going to happen kind of thing that we all dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
But so of course I was glad to get out there in the world and be with people and do art and stuff like that. But I also I didn't have the self-care things in place.
Mm-hmm.
Anymore. I didn't know how to do that after having been more at home and doing things. A lot of stuff went by the wayside. So what I'd like to do is do some more like painting for fun. I have a friend, Susan Hirschmugel, who she was a wonderful artist, and she one year decided to paint 100 things that she loved.
Oh.
And she just painted little paintings on cardboard, little small, like maybe 6x6 pieces of cardboard, and she would paint like her teapot or her plants or her knitting, and it was a great exercise in gratitude and a low pressure way to practice painting. And I thought, wow, that would be kind of a fun exercise. And then just doing some writing. I'm going to go on a writing retreat with Teatro del Pueblo sometime in March.
Oh, that sounds like great fun. When you mentioned painting, I was invited to come to this online painting thing. And I was nervous about it. It's like, I don't know how to paint. Why am I doing this? I'm not good at this. And it was wonderful. The artist who was teaching, she says, we're all artists. But it's how we judge ourselves that limit us. And instead of looking at this as you're creating art, why not just take this is a way that you can like deal with stress. And this is like a stress reliever to just pursue painting something. And it was, as long as it was like, I don't have to create art, because there's a whole sort of thing about, am I good enough to create art? It's like, no, this is my stress relief. And when I did that, I think my art became more interesting because I didn't impose that there had to be a right way to do it. And it was really nice. I mean, I look at it and go, it's okay. But what I really like about it is there was, in those moments, I didn't have an internal monologue about what it should be or what I should be doing instead of this. I just enjoyed the moment of playing with color and the texture of paint on a canvas. And every one of us interpreted the picture differently. That was kind of fun at the end. We had a picture to draw from, but none of us wanted to like completely imitate that. So I think that I want to encourage, I say this because I want to encourage the audience that we can paint too, if we want to. That's kind of a nice thing to do. And you teach art too, don't you?
I do. Yeah. Art and writing and, all kinds of things. yes. And so I feel like part of what being a facilitator of other people's creativity is, excuse me, is really sort of inviting people to just show up with, and not get too concerned or bunged up. And the thing is that my intention for myself this year is to do that for myself.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
How to be the gentle guide for your own soul.
Right. Yeah. I think you have to refill the cup sometimes, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for, without losing the wonderful, glorious, being out there in the world stuff. There has to be some balance, and I think I'm seeking some balance.
For me, it also gets back to hearing our own voice on what we need. I think sometimes we override our voice because we are giving to others. So how do we get more in tune with, I need a timeout. It was interesting. Last week, I have a coach. I have an executive coach. First time I've ever had an executive coach. And I was doing all the solutions of things that I thought needed to happen. And she said, just stop. How do you feel about that? I went, feel? How do I feel? It's like I recognize that I override feeling about what I'm thinking. I decompartmentalize it somehow, and I'm like, well, this is the solution, and this is what we have to do, and chop it down into little blocks of things that are manageable, blah 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 blah, and then all of a sudden I'm like, feel? Wow.
Wow.
That's a concept. How do I feel about that? And one thing about art is that it does allow you, I think, more flexibility in feeling and encouraging that. Sometimes in the day-to-day, to-do list, the feelings can be overridden.
And both you and Anne mentioned different kind of voices and different expressions of our inner beings. And, Anne, when I teach ethics, I talk about different voices in our heads. And some students are like, what voice? And I go, the voice that just asks you to ask me that. And if you think that's your voice, who's that voice talking to in your head? So anyway, there's sometimes voices we have to stop and listen to that haven't been able to chime in just yet, right? I mean.
Yeah. And I think 2022 for me was about being a human doing, and maybe not so much a human being. And again, it's there were some really wonderful things. I mean, I got to make a 16-foot backpack stilt puppet for Open Eye Figure Theater's musical called Hairball. I got to make a Bigfoot puppet, and then the big baby Bigfoot as well.
Oh,
and that was
darling.
a challenge. It was so much fun, and that show took place on the roof of the Bakken Museum, and Heart of the Beast went back to Minnesota Orchestra. We were doing a Halloween show, so I got to be a dancing skeleton and rock troll, and
Wow.
I worked with women at Heart House who are struggling with substance abuse. We did some writing and felting and embroidery, and I got to. I mean, there were all these wonderful things. There was an abundance of good things, and I have to. But the thing is that sometimes it's about, well, I'm doing all these things, and I have to stop and enjoy them.
Yes. Yeah.
You must.
One quick question for you before we let you go. Are there some things coming up that you want to be promoting that you want to take this chance to let folks know that are happening in 2023? A class perhaps, or a program coming up? I think we may have lost Anne.
I was going to mention Anne Sawyer Art, by the way.
Yes, there you go.
.com. It's a wonderful website. Anne, if you don't want us to share that, just shake your head.
We don't see her. She's calling in. Anyway, Anne, I think we may have lost you, but thank you so much for joining us and sharing about your gentle intentions for being in the year ahead.
That was perfect, though.
We're going to go to commercials now, and we're going to come back, and we have one more guest joining us to talk about gentle intentions for the year ahead, which I think you'll very much enjoy. So be back in just a few moments. Welcome back to Connections Radio Show. I'm Lori Fitz, and so glad that you've joined our conversation today as we've been exploring 2023 and gentle intentions. No big proclamations, no big revolutions. We are looking at how are we evolving and what are things that we want for ourselves and others. And I have Rick Bernardo co-hosting today, and you have invited some wonderful guests, and you have an invited guest for this segment as well.
I do, not to brag, but there's another guest. Her name is Brittany Parker. And just while it's in my head, Locally Grown Comedy is the website. Is it .org or .com, Brittany?
It is locallygrowncomedy.com.
.com. All right. I didn't want to get it wrong, send people off into another dimension of the web. So good morning, Brittany.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And we're so glad you're here to share about your gentle intentions for the year ahead, as well as some of the cool work that you're doing. We've talked about intellectual, emotional, spiritual. We haven't talked as much about physical. And I think a lot of times people look at the new year as being the time to make their physical, resolutions. But maybe we can look at physical a little differently. But you had some fun with physical in your last sketch that you just posted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Locally Grown Comedy is a sketch comedy company that has about 80 actors from the Twin Cities involved. We do sketch comedy about things that are happening in our world today. We do some parodies and whatnot, and our latest one is sort of a parody on the fact that, the second that clock hits midnight and becomes January 1st, everyone starts saying, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to lose all this weight, and it's more so, more so in my head at least, a healthier view on that should maybe be, I'm just going to keep my body active this year. I'm going to work on, enjoying the body I have but also, being active. And so we made this sketch called the OG Gosh Fitness Watch, which is
You betcha.
a play on how, oh, you betcha. How many people have you seen going, oh, I just haven't reached my 10,000 steps today?
I'm one of those. I am obsessed. I am obsessed with my steps. I admit it. I am a Minnesota obsessed
as most people
step
are
person.
who have a Fitbit.
Yeah, I do.
So we did a sketch on that, and it's called the OG Gosh Fitness Watch, and it plays on the obsession of looking at your Fitbit and relying on it, and also Minnesota's, for lack of better words, passive aggressiveness, and
odd competitiveness as well.
Of course, you get it. So yeah, this sketch is just about people who have. It's a fake commercial for the OG Gosh Fitness Watch. It's this watch voiced by Diana Durand, who's a Minnesota actress and voiceover artist. And it's just this Siri that's passive aggressive. That's like, oh, you're doing fine. Or, good workout, I guess.
I guess.
I love. Well, being that I maybe that would motivate me more. Maybe just having the steps isn't enough, because right now I'm just feeling guilty that I haven't. I'm only at 1,759, and I think by this time I should at least be at the third 3,000 or 3,500. So maybe I needed a Siri to tell me that you could do better.
Yeah, that is literally one of the lines that the OG Gosh Fitness Watch says. That she goes, well, I guess if you're not going to push yourself, you should go get those Sweet Martha's cookies out of the freezer. I know that. So it's very flippant and it's very sarcastic, but it's also, it's making fun of the odd parameters we put on ourselves the second that clock strikes midnight.
Well, and I love your idea of essentially how do we shift that to be something that we can embrace. Like, who doesn't want to be active? Well, maybe there's some out there, but some deep part of us at least like the fact of being active. I love being outdoors, and part of my intentions for the year ahead is I just have been so busy with work that I have not done as much just enjoying the outdoors and being active outdoors.
And that's hard for those of us who live in the Midwest who are, in negative 15-degree weather. But I also think, the idea of being active doesn't just apply to, your physical health. It also applies to your mental health. Like, how are you continuing to challenge yourself mentally every year, even if it's like, okay, I'm going to do a crossword every day, or
Yeah.
I'm going to read more books, or I'm going to take a community ed course. I think that's really important when it comes to, upping your health game as well.
And you can tie it to something you enjoy versus feeling like this is a punishment for your resolutions. I have been bad.
Correct.
So, bless me, Father, I have sinned, sort of thing. And I now need to do something to sort of
Absolutely.
compensate for my last year.
I've got to find a cure for cancer now. Please help me.
I can do that Tuesday. Thursday's global warming. Saturday's,
But I like, Brittany,
Wild.
also that there sometimes the language we use for this is there's all kinds of muscles. And we have mental muscles and we have spiritual muscles. And I like the idea that those are activities as well that create different parts of ourselves.
And activity is generally good. I mean, there's a sense that even if you're sitting on a couch and you're watching an interesting movie, that's an activity. But at least
Absolutely. And I think Locally Grown has taken the idea of, Locally Grown, my company has taken the idea of being active to all of those points. We have decided, we're going to possibly do a live event this year, which is we are going to be active physically in our community instead of just being online. We are going to, try to source out, some of our sketch writing to new writers. We're going to, be active in trying to expand who we have on our set. And that was our goal, is we had 80 actors and crew members on our set last year. We would like to get it to 120 this year.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Because we have so many people behind the scenes, whether it's writing or camera or editing, and people on set that we would love to have. There's a lot of arts and in our community, and we are actively trying to keep it going, to make it bigger, to grow.
And just to mention, because we only have about another minute here, go to locallygrowncomedy.com because there are a ton of and amazingly produced videos that are very funny. Right,
And
Brittany?
we are also on. Yeah. Well, I think so.
Yeah.
But
They are.
we are
Also-
we're Locally Grown Comedy LLC on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. We're very active on social media when it comes to posting our full sketches on there. We have Grammy nominated artists that have done music videos for us, Emmy-winning editors who have made stuff. We have
It's amazing.
musical theater actors and film and all this kind of stuff involved. So go and check us out.
And I'm going to invite you ahead of time to December 2023, and we can look back at our intentions and have an interesting time looking, well, how did we become active and what happened in this last year? So thank you.
And if we don't meet the goals, we'll check it out.
That's right, right.
All right, Brittany.
And I'm going for those 10,000 a day. Anyway, thanks for joining us here on AM 950 and the Connections Radio Show. We're glad you were there.
Thank you.
Thank you.